So for me, I was very conscious of the future impact that a lack of money could have. And my parents would open letters up where they'd been paying into their teacher's pension their whole career. And every year it seemed like what they were promised they were going to get suddenly was going to be a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less.
Welcome to Living That So Fabulously, where we turn financial flops into fabulous comebacks, and sometimes the pastor becomes a millionaire without fleecing his flock. Okay, so today's guest is, or at least used to be a pastor, and is now a millionaire.
So basically, he left the church and found a higher calling in the stock market.
Yeah, and he's not just making money, he's actually helping other regular folks do it too, all from his laptop in London.
Amen to that. We're talking money, mindset, and major transformation with Lewis Crompton. So let's dive in. Lewis Crompton is the founder of Start Trading. He teaches everyday folks, such as you and me, how to build wealth with just 30 minutes a day. Well, and that and Wi-Fi.
Whether he's schooling Wall Street bros or mentoring trading rookies, Lewis proves that transformation is always possible, financially and fabulously. Welcome to the show, Lewis.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. That's probably the best intro I've ever had. Yeah, that's amazing. We put a little bit of time into it.
Yeah, we try to make it a little spicy, a little fun. Yeah. So you make a living today investing in the financial markets. Many people who do that, we assume that investors like that grew up in a family that discussed money and investing. So what was money like for you growing up?
Money was almost like the ugly sister or the black sheep of the family. You never really had them there. They never really showed up. And when they did, it was a bit of a problem. So I remember my parents were both teachers. I wasn't born into money whatsoever. They had very normal salaries. I remember hearing very often, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. And I always knew growing up, I wanted to earn a lot of money without having to work too hard for it, which is where inevitably, or should I say eventually, I discovered trading, which allowed me to do just that.
So if you're just joining us, this is Living Not So Fabulously, where money talk sometimes has a British accent. We're speaking with financial and trading expert Lewis Crompton. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor and drop a comment below to share whether or not it was taboo for you to talk about money at the dinner table growing up. So, Lewis, what triggered your interest in investing, especially making it something that you could make an everyday living at and cover your living expenses?
So for me, I was very conscious of the future impact that a lack of money could have. And my parents would open letters up where they'd been paying into their teacher's pension their whole career. And every year it seemed like what they were promised they were going to get suddenly was going to be a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. And I never wanted to be in that position. So I knew from a very, very early age that I didn't trust government pension schemes, government bonds, or anything like that. And I needed to find a way to have money, make me money without having to work super hard for it. So as a 13-year-old kid, I used to do a paper round. I remember delivering these papers thinking, why would I have a pension when I could own these properties, for example? But I had no way, no understanding, no knowledge of how to go about doing anything like that whatsoever. So it was always from that lack of money that I'd seen within my parents' life. And I wouldn't say we were particularly poor, but we definitely didn't have all the things that we wanted to have. And I remember being told I couldn't go on ski trips as a kid and things like that, and all the different school trips that all my wealthier friends were able to do. So there was very much that sense of lack. And I think that sense of lack is what inspired me to take hold of my own financial situation at a fairly young age. So it was when I was 24, really, that I discovered how it is I could go about making this money from investing so I could escape a pretty terrible job that I had at the time.
Yeah. It's interesting how you described that your parents opening up those letters and getting that notification that they're going to make less or get less and less and less. And I think a lot of folks in America, especially those who rely solely on Social Security and retirement, are also starting to have those fears, maybe getting ready to get that letter in the mail when the Social Security system goes into the red. Let's just put it
So
that way.
I'm curious though, you said you delivered papers as a kid, and that was when you started to think like, this isn't what I want to do. I'm gonna own property or own some sort of an investment. I'm curious where that thought process came from, because David also delivered newspapers as a kid, and he didn't necessarily have that same train of thought.
Nope, I just spent the
Yeah,
money.
So I want to know, like,
yeah.
for those of our listeners and viewers, I'm like, what exactly is the distinction between the two thought processes?
I think there's probably two things that were going on. I wasn't in a particularly poor area, and I think a lot of the way that I've come to think about privilege is really about mindset and beliefs, and privilege in those two areas. And so I grew up around people who had a mindset of they could do something other than what they had right now. So my neighbors were wealthy people. They ran their own successful business. They had property abroad, so we would visit their property abroad when we were going on holidays, because for my parents it was a cheap holiday, right? Because we couldn't necessarily afford to do our own thing. So I was exposed to people like that quite early on, but also I have very clear memories of just watching television and seeing what other people had and wondering why we didn't have that, and watching random. There's this one particular TV show, it's called My Family in the UK, and there was a kid on there that was a whiz kid genius, and he started making money by investing in the stock market. And I remember at that age begging my dad after watching that TV show to let me open up a stocks and shares account. And my dad is a lovely human being, very, very supportive, and he actually looked into it. But the way he looked into it is very different to what I now understand to be true. And it was a different world back then. And he needed a lot more money than he had at that time to be able to open an account. Definitely too much money to let probably like a 12, 13-year-old kid just have a go and have a guess. So yeah, it was those are two things I think which really fed into me having that mindset.
So I'm curious, many people think of investing more of sort of like a future money, or even as a hobby per se, something that may pay off dividends down the road. But you're kind of looking at investing probably for that reason as well, but also to fund your current lifestyle. Is that correct? And if so, how exactly are you achieving that?
Definitely correct. And there is different styles of investing. So my primary style of investing, which generates me cash flow on a daily, weekly or monthly basis, that is from short-term trading. So not necessarily day trading. It's a style of trading called swing trading, which is far less intense compared to day trading. You don't need to be thinking Wolf of Wall Street and all that craziness, although parts of it look quite fun. It's not necessarily my bag. So
I
I
like a
think there's
cocktail or two.
yeah, I don't mind them. So there's definitely the perception that when we're talking about investing, we're talking about invest now for the long term, for your retirement, for this and that. And that's totally valid. That's totally great. But that's only one style of investing. There is a style of trading, style of investing like I do, which means you can actually be generating exceptional cash flow right now, which you can then diversify into those longer term investments as well, which is exactly what I did. So I was only able to invest in property, invest in nice watches, invest in artwork and things like that because of the cash flow that I'd created from my trading. Now, other people create that cash flow from having a really successful business or a really high paying job that they then put into long-term assets. But I didn't have any of those things at my disposal. So I had to kind of start from the ground up. So I started with trading, generated that cash flow, those exceptional returns, and then re-diversified from there.
That's interesting. Well, speaking of diversity, and your investing, I'm sure you've had a diversity of experiences when it comes to your investing. Has there ever been an experience where it hasn't gone as planned as how you wanted it to?
Definitely. And there's two things here. So people think that what I do in terms of shorter term trading is really high risk. That's just not true. There's ways you can do it risky and there's ways you can do it safely. So I prefer low risk, high reward. So when I place a short term trade using my method, we're only risking 1% of our overall capital, which is incredibly low. So we don't have to go all in on anything like that. We're low risk, high reward, and we can still be making 5%, 10% returns every single month, even using such low risk. Now, where it's really gone wrong for me is when I started at 5 points down. I either break down my own rules and I don't follow them, but I've never really done that, so it's never been too bad. Or B, which is what comes after A. I don't know if you knew that. So, or B, I find myself in a property deal which goes wrong for some reason or other, which is out of my control, or I've not done my due diligence correctly. And that happened to me a few years ago, where I went into property investing thinking it's simple, it's easy, I can make this work. And I had the money to do so. So I bought a property which I was going to renovate and then flip and sell on for a profit. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy. COVID happened the week after I bought the property. We ran out of materials. The price of materials skyrocketed. My business partner disappeared. Couldn't get hold of him. My builder disappeared. They didn't do their job properly. Long story short, all of these things happened outside of my control. And instead of making £30,000 in profit, I made a £30,000 loss. So
Ooh.
it's definitely not all gone well for me whatsoever in investing. But because I am diversified, because my bread and butter is my trading income, it wasn't a big problem. I wasn't bankrupt. Whereas if that was my first ever property deal and I didn't have income from elsewhere, that could have potentially wiped me out.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. I think that is probably the scary thing that prevents a lot of folks from continuing to invest, whether it's the same type of investing or switch to something else. So did that experience teach you anything about money and risk and how you view them?
Big time, yeah. So number one, I love trading, even more so because of that, because I'm even more a believer now in diversified income vehicles. Number two, I hate property investing. I still will do it for the long term, but I hate it. And number three, control what you can control and plan for the worst. So I now always, in any investment I do, I look at the worst case scenario. And if I'm still happy with the worst case scenario, then I'm happy to invest. But I do a heck of a lot more due diligence now. I take a lot more of a keen interest on the numbers, and I trust my gut more, because that deal that I did, I wasn't convinced of the numbers that were presented to me, but I trusted somebody else. Now I trust my gut over somebody else.
Mm.
When you say you control what you can control, what does that mean from a practical perspective? What are you implementing exactly to control the things that you can control?
So take it back to trading for a moment. I have very, very clear strategy criteria. I keep it simple. For everyone I teach, we give them like a 5-step process to follow. Super simple. Now, what I can control is sticking to that process. I can't control how the market's going to move. I'm not Trump with a database of Twitter people that, or sorry, X, whatever they call it now, which is going to impact the market and move it massively. I'm not that big a deal, sadly. And that means I can't control the way the market moves. What I can control is my approach to the market and the safety measures that I implement. So I control the elements I can. I do what I know works. It doesn't work 100% of the time. Nothing ever does. But if I've mitigated and protected myself by controlling my own process, which I know is functional and yields good results, then even if the markets go against me, it doesn't matter, because I'm protected and I've controlled what I can control.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Please hold that thought. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously. We're back talking with CEO of Start Trading, Lewis Crompton.
So, Lewis, from what I gather, you left your job and then you Start Trading with around 20,000 pounds. And within 5 years, you had over $1 million, or I'm sorry, £1 million. So that's got to be a little bit of a mind shift that's happening there, that you have gone from something that you wanted to start to having it be very successful. What changed in your thinking that allowed that to happen? Because I think a lot of folks start off with the mindset of, I don't know if this is going to work, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to unpack there, really. And I think before I left the job I didn't love, there was the step before that is I was using that job as an escapism from having to step away from the church based upon my sexuality. So in the church, I was actually quite successful. I was ordained. I had an international business as a counselor, as a therapist within the church, and I loved it because I got to truly help people change their lives for the better. So when I found trading and I left that job after 7 months, so started learning about trading, left after 7 months, and started traveling around the world, that itself was a massive mind shift because I had to get used to making money not by working full-time hours. And I think trading can be quite a lonely and quite an isolated thing because it's just you in the market. And that's brilliant in so many ways. You don't have staff, you don't have team members to worry about, you don't have clients to worry about. It's just you and the market. And that was brilliant. But I'm very much a creature of community. That's probably why I loved being in the church, because I felt very much connected to an overall community and feeling connected to a sense of mission. And people nowadays in general, I don't think know what it feels like to be connected to a mission. So I then discovered that my mission was to help other people to achieve this thing. So ultimately, I'm on a mission to help 1 million families live with less stress and more fun through financial empowerment. And so the shifts I've gone on around money, my beliefs around money, things I remember hearing my parents say, like money separates people. And actually, for me now, money connects people and brings them together. There's been so many different changes of mindset and change of opinion. And I think what's helped with that is my old opinions in the church that I don't hold true anymore have allowed me to hold all of my opinions very, very lightly. So I don't mind if someone disagrees with me, and I don't mind if we have differences of opinion. I can still love you, respect you, honor you, and work with you. And I think that's partly why we have such a diverse community within Star Trading. So as I was generating more money, and the reality is not all of my money comes from trading, right? I'm a diversified investor. So I now have my business. I also have my property investing business. I also have other assets which have increased in value over time. But trading was the doorway for me to open up the possibility to live a true life of passion and purpose. And that's why I absolutely love it. And I love sharing it with other people.
You're right. There is a ton to unpack there. I think that diving deeper into that question could be a whole another episode. But while we have you, we've never had this opportunity. Here you are, somebody who's come from the church and now has migrated their career into trading. And what many of us got out of me, particularly Catholic school and going through being a Southern Baptist for a while, and I'm sure maybe even David to a certain degree, is that money is the root of all evil, and greed is the antithesis of everything that God wants. I wonder, what was that transformation like for you? Can you articulate that a little bit of what it was like going from maybe that belief? And I know that's misinterpreted from the Bible, but that's what a lot of people take away from it, to going from the church to kind of being sort of the epitome of the financial world.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I think there's kind of two things, and you are right. The actual typical understanding of money from the church is actually misinterpretation of what the Bible actually says. But I think I grew up thinking I was expected to be poor, and that poor people were more virtuous, which is just utter rubbish. And the other one that I really struggled with in my own mindset was believing that if I earned something, if I got given something, if I made wealth, that God would take it all away from me just to teach me a character lesson for my own good. And I realized that isn't going to happen. And I'll be honest, sometimes I still struggle with that because those beliefs can be so deeply ingrained into us. And every now and then they pop their ugly head up. But I quite like it when they pop their head up because it's an opportunity for me again to stand my ground, reaffirm what I know to be true now, and live in this intentional place of abundance and see the impact that me stepping into that place has on the people around me for their betterment and their benefit is the truest joy and the truest satisfaction that I have, is seeing other people change their lives because of their own ability to step into a new reality for themselves based on kind of what I've taught them and what I've then shown them is possible. I really think that most of the work I do, beyond teaching people the technical side of how to do this and supporting them and holding their hand the whole way through, it's really about having hope for them and transmitting that hope to them for a better future than they thought they were going to have financially.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So my dotted line question to that then is, there are many in the LGBTQ plus community who have an aversion to investing and to capitalism, and argue that we're maybe in late stage capitalism and it's not serving anybody, just the billionaires. And we're having a hot conversation about that, at least in the US right now. I'm curious, what is your what is your feedback to those in the LGBTQ plus community who find it themselves it's probably more virtuous to be poor and that we need to struggle, and then if we are taking gains from the stock market, for example, we're not necessarily earning those gains and we're just adding to the problem?
I mean, lots of things to talk about that. And I think I understand the pain. I understand where it comes from. I think my story in general is one of choice and transformation. And I think money has helped me create a lot of incredible things in my life. I think money is more a revealer of the person who has the money than it is about the money itself. So even in the church, we have this phrase, which was from my Pentecostal friends, which is money is the muscle of mission. Basically meaning if you want to make a change in the world, it helps to grease those wheels if you've got some money to do it. So I'm not pro capitalism massively. I would say I'm a social capitalist. I believe in helping others through capitalism and adding true value. Doctors get paid very, very well for helping other people. What's the difference if we're helping people? So making money through investing, are we helping people? Maybe not in the activity of how we make the money, but what we can do with that very much can change the world for the better. Very, very much. I mean, today I had someone contact me seeking investment for a queer space in London because we don't really have many of them. One of the biggest ones just shut down. How am I going to help keep those spaces open as an investor if I don't have money to invest? So it can feel like a double-edged sword, but I think it's about how you choose to use that money, how you choose to engage with that world. But money is helpful for so many things. Let's not do what the church has done and demonize it. Let's not disenfranchise ourselves from it by deciding we don't have access to it. We can take up space in those types of places now. It may not be comfortable, it may not be easy, but it is totally doable.
So one of the most important things that Lewis has done with his earnings is something I think all of us can learn from, especially the earnings that he got from his primary source of income, his investing. It was that he diversified that into other money-making ventures, such as real estate investing and small business. We call this the wealth builder's pyramid.
Yeah, and especially in today's economy, it's really, really, really hard to achieve financial independence, financial security, just from a single source of income, including a W-2. So the more you can diversify your income streams, the better, more security you'll have today and in the long run.
Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you see, scan the QR code below to follow Yahoo Finance Podcast for more videos and expert insights, because when you do, you're one step closer to making your money as fabulous as you are. Finally, share in the comments whether or not it was taboo for you to talk about money growing up in your household. And until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.